I have a purpose. And if you think that's some sort of blessing, it's not. It means I have an obligation to see a very specific thing through. And with that obligation comes sacrifice.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Marty Supreme is a period drama set largely in the 1950s to 60s, directed by Josh Safdie, starring Timothée Chalamet, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Odessa A'zion. The film follows Marty, a charismatic grifter and underground ping pong hustler who drifts from smoky basements to high stakes crime, chasing status, money, and validation while skating past consequences at every turn. All right, so getting into our sad review regarding the story, Marty Supreme introduces a world full of compelling characters, but struggles fully to use them. The film often feels bigger than it needs to be, choosing a spectacle over depth. Marty commits serious crimes like mob violence, attempted murder energy, yet rarely faces meaningful consequences. At a certain point, you start to wondering, is Marty invisible or immune to reality? There are several moments in the film where Marty is doing pretty criminal activity that never has a satisfying ending, such as dousing a mob who he stole from in the first place in gasoline, and then as they pull away, accidentally hitting an electric pole, which seemingly burns them all to death. That the movie never comes back to. He also hits Rachel's husband in the head that looks almost like attempted murder. The ending also lands in an emotional middle ground that feels unearned. Marty doesn't rise or fall. He just stops. And for a character who neglects responsibility nearly the entire film, that final emotional beat with his kid just doesn't hit. It doesn't make sense. The acting is solid across the board, however, and Timothy Chalamet carries the film with confidence and charm. However, Gwyneth Paltrow is masterful. Her performance is controlled, sharp, and memorable, including her husband, played by Kevin O'Leary, was great per usual. He plays a smug businessman to the T, and this movie gave him room to really dive into his character with two of my favorite scenes of the movie. One of them, which was when he told Marty, "I've been here since 1601," and that he's seen hundreds of Martys, all taking different options, but in the end, he is always there to benefit, as if he's business. He's not human; he's just a corporation. And also the paddling scene I thought was really interesting. It would have been fun to see them land somewhere in this back and forth instead of rushing to an end. They got to a really climactic point after the fake turn to real exhibition ping pong game, but they didn't carry us on beyond that. They rushed us to an ending. However, Odessa A'zion is a bright spot of the movie. She really became a scene stealer for me. Her performance was dynamite. Her looks brought in a mix of beauty and menace that immediately draws you in with her acting prowess. The script tried to keep her as a second fiddle, but the lasting impression for me is that she should have gotten more of the focus. The color her mischievousness and cleverness as a play off Marty, but she repeatedly showed that her hunger for independence was willing to lie by her being willing to lie, steal, and kill to get the pieces on the board to move as she wished. Unfortunately, that wish centered around Marty, but removing that aspect of it, I thought Odessa. As Rachel was a really compelling character. You also had characters like Ezra, played by Abel Ferreira. Ezra is menacing, mysterious, and positioned as someone with real power and responsibility after we see him with a suitcase full of cash. And then he abruptly gets killed off in a way that feels rushed and unsatisfying for a character built up with such tension. His exit lands flat and robs the story of weight. A character like Ezra is menacing and smart. I mean, he looks it and also walks it. And you can tell he knows what he's doing. Him getting outsmarted or being careless in this situation just didn't make sense. And it really was unfortunate because you really felt at certain points of the movie that, oh, this guy's really going to wreak some havoc. Let's talk about Fran Drescher's character. We all recognize her. Um, and I feel like she was underused. Knowing her character, Fran, I believe from the TV series, it just felt like she could have been a much stronger character in the film. Tyler, the creator, is also in here, and I think he represented a true missed opportunity. As the only black character we see operating fully above ground, when you cast a recognizable face, like this, you expect to get some level of depth. However, he feels like a character written after the story was already done. The film skirts around passive acts of racism and refuses to engage honestly with the reality of being a black man in the 1950s under Jim Crow and rigid racial boundaries, which leads me to feel as if it was almost intentional that it was left out in the way, because they'll touch it barely, and then never address it and just skip it. And they never go into any depth with him. We never get to see any of his background, his family. He just plays a plot device. And I think it really hits home with that final scene where we see him after Marty has pretty much risked his freedom in life by being careless. He looks over at him and waves at him, and Marty ignores him and walks out. That's the last time I remember seeing him. Um, I think that also leans into Marty's ping pong soulmate, Bella, another more interesting, it seems like more compelling character, who's given a really intense and yet interesting capsule scene, but largely is treated like a plot device beyond the honeybee scene. I would have liked to seen them illuminate him more, or maybe have a meeting of the minds, or perhaps a crossing of the ships in the night with Marty, where he calls him out for some of the hypocrisy given what he's been through. But we never get that. In regards to visuals, unsurprisingly, the period atmosphere works. It reminded me of like Godfather 2, but with color. The film does feel gritty, it gets stylized and occasionally dreamlike, which I appreciated. But sometimes that fever dream quality undercut the realism, especially with some of the more violent actions leading to no believable fallout. So that wasn't really a hit on the visuals, but more so the script and some of the decisions that were made on the screen that took away from what I thought the visuals could have really elevated. All right, so vibes. The movie wants to be cool very badly. I mean, this is obvious. We saw the promo for it. It wants to be the coolest thing out. You got cool crimes, cool dialogue, cool chaos. But when you look at it closely, it's rarely cool actually what is happening on the screen in front of you. And that even pushes further home with the lack of consequences. The vibe drifts into fantasy rather than tension for me. Characters like Bella, Ezra, Frangelo are intriguing, but treated more like plot devices, whereas they would have probably grounded the film more. And allowed for us to feel more and get more tension. Ezra, in particular, is built up as menacing, as I stated, and then disregarded in an unsatisfying way. There's also a missed opportunity with Tyler that we discussed earlier. The avoidances feel intentional and disappointing. Impact. The film allows us to understand that Marty is a terrible person, selfish, manipulative, and reckless, but refuses to deliver either reckoning or reward. He glides across other interesting characters and exits the film in a narrative no man's land. Nothing truly sticks. So at the end of the day, I gave this one a 7.9 out of 10. Definitely didn't hit an 8 anything range for me. Wavered between 7.7 to 7.9, and decided to land a little bit higher, 7.9, because of actresses like Odessa. Again, it's worth a watch for Gwyneth Paltrow and Odessa A'zion alone, but the script avoids commitment. There's no real consequences, no real payoff, and but yet it's still a stylish film. But it just refuses to choose whether Marty belongs in jail, the gutter, or the spotlight. And because of that, the ending doesn't land. 7.9 out of 10. Peace. Thanks for watching another Real Time Critics.
Okay, can I help you with something?
Maybe. I just ordered one of everything off the room service menu. There's no way I'll be able to eat it all alone.
Ah, so you'd like me to come up to your room?
Mm-hmm.